Welcome to the greatest solos of all time, where we break down iconic guitar solos that changed music forever and show you how to bring them into your playing. And today we're kicking off the series with one of the most legendary guitar solos ever recorded. The soaring melodic masterpiece that is Hotel California by the Eagles. Now, why does a solo still give people the chills after nearly 50 years? It's not just the tone or the technique, it's the storytelling, the phrasing, the harmony, and those unforgettable licks. And that's why today we'll be analyzing the key, the scales used, the chord progression, overall guitar phrasing, the instrumentation, and the arrangement of the entire song. Because all of these 6 things come together to make this solo one of the greatest solos of all time. So today, not only are you going to learn some epic licks from the Hotel California solo, but you'll learn exactly why they work so well. And you'll be able to easily steal these licks and use them in your own playing. Before we go any further, I just want to show you guys the opening lick. It's a killer opening lick. It actually starts off a little bit for the downbeat. We're in B minor pentatonic, and it's got an epic bend coming up. Right, we're actually sliding in the box 2 of B minor pentatonic G string, slide from 9 to 11. I use my middle finger. And then we go to the B string, go 10, 12, down, up, and then pick the 12th fret again and do a minor third bend. So we're hearing the D note on the 15th fret. And then we go 10, 12, and then G string 9. So that's the opening lick. That's a killer lick to steal. Alright, make sure to stick around to the rest of the video to learn some more epic licks like that. And also, tab for today's lesson will be on my Patreon. Just $2 a month and you'll get access to tab for all my YouTube lessons. And it's also a great way to support me in this channel. Thank you. Alright, I want to briefly go through the arrangement of the song because I find it's important to learn what the arrangement is because that kind of dictates how you solo. So after the intro, it goes right into the verse, which is the exact same progression chord-wise as the intro. That goes into the chorus, back to a verse, back to a chorus, back to a verse. Then finally you land on the solo. The solo is the last thing for the song. That tells me they were really trying to make the solo really hit and land home. Let's talk about the overall key and what kind of scales we end up seeing. So we're in B minor, and the solo uses the pentatonic scale, the minor scale, Dorian, harmonic minor. There's so many layers to the key center that's happening that makes this solo so melodically dense and beautiful. It's not just your run-of-the-mill B minor. It's always changing. And as we analyze the chords, you're going to see how this is possible so you can use this in your own solos. So now let's check out the most important part before the licks, and that is the chord progression. I always recommend you learn the chord progression before you learn any of these iconic solos because it helps you understand what's going on so much better. It goes something like this. It starts off very simple with the B minor chord. And then what's really cool, the next chord is F sharp dominant 7, which is found from the harmonic minor scale. This is not diatonic to B minor, it's diatonic to B harmonic minor. Next is A, which is in just normal B minor. That's the 7 of B minor. Now the E chord is the next, which is not in B minor, right? This comes from either B Dorian, it could also come from B melodic minor. The way they end up phrasing it sounds much more like B Dorian. So keep note of that, E major, because later on it's going to come back around, it's going to be E minor. Then the next 3 chords are just diatonic to B minor. So the G major, to a D major, the relative major of B minor, to E minor, right? We just played an E major, but now we're playing an E minor. What's the difference? The difference is the third. E major has a G sharp. E minor has a G natural. That changes the scale, and as we dive in later, you're going to see how it changes and affects the phrasing of the guitar solo. And then right back to the F sharp 7, which gives us that dominant resolution back to B minor. So that's the progression. B minor, F sharp 7, A, E, G, D, E minor, F sharp 7. And before we dive into some licks, there's something also important to take away from this chord progression. Every time I've listened to a legendary solo, and as we build out this series, you'll see this as well. The rhythm section sounds beautiful on its own. Now, will there be examples of a rhythm part being kind of bland and boring until the solo? Yes, but most of the time, great legendary solos are written over great chord progressions. Like this chord progression by itself is beautiful and tells a story, which makes the job as a guitar player actually much easier as long as you follow your ear. If you get super hyper technical and theoretical and try to throw cool licks in, you can destroy the story that the chords are telling. But if you have a beautiful chord progression like this is, all you have to do is give the chord progression what it wants, and I think that's what they did in writing this solo. Now, we're going to bring up terminologies like pentatonic minor, harmonic minor, Dorian. I can't say this with 100% fact. I think they were just using their ear, and they can sing. They are singers. They're just singing through the guitar, and that's what's kind of led them to choose the notes that they played in the solo, not this theoretical element. So I'm going to bring up the theory because I want us to know that, but also keep in mind, it's more about the ear, that if you follow the ear, it will guide you to all this kind of crazy stuff. It's so wild as you develop your ear and then you try to explain what your ear hears theoretically. It ended up sounding crazy. Like you're blending minor, Dorian, harmonic minor. It sounds like all this crazy stuff, but it's really just you following your ear. It's actually super simple. You follow your ear and it can make beautiful music like this. Now we're going to dive into some of the epic licks and phrasing that we've been kind of talking about and see how it works in context. Now, because of copyright, I can't play the actual song, unfortunately. I'm going to try to go lick by lick, phrase by phrase as best as I can. I will skip around a little bit because this video, I don't want to be too long. But I'm sorry, I can't play the audio. They'll probably just delete my video if I did that. The Eagles are very, very weird about that kind of stuff. So we're going to go through it. We're going to dive in. We already know the first lick, so that comes in a little bit before the downbeat. And then this, that big bend, is on the B minor chord downbeat, which is the top of our chord progression, which makes perfect sense because the next phrase goes, right? So it starts off all pentatonic, still over the B minor, but then that notes the downbeat of the chord change, which what does it change to? F sharp 7. What is distinct about the F sharp 7? It's not found in B minor. It's found in B harmonic minor. And the important thing is the third of F sharp 7 is A sharp, which is the exact note he lands on. He lands on the major third. So we're already changing scales. We were hitting A natural right here early on. But now we're changing it to A sharp because the chord is changing. He's following his ear. It's telling him that he needs to land on that note, not what's diatonic to B minor would be the A natural, not the A sharp. But this note over F sharp 7 would be very bad. If he stayed in B minor because he was so rigid on the scale, it would sound like this if he hit an A natural over that chord. Right? Instead of... So far? And he actually does a bit of a call and response phrase here over that F sharp 7. It's very cool. Which ends on the same note actually, but it's going D string, 9th fret. We're in box 2 B minor pentatonic. 9, hammer 12, pull off 9, slide to the flat 7, which is not, that's that bad note, the A natural we were just talking about. But what he does is bend it up a half step back to that A sharp. So, oh, it's just great phrasing. So we have... Now the next phrase is quite odd over the A chord. First note is we're blending call and response phrases with hitting chord tones with also motifs, right? So this is actually a motif that's happening. So the first motif was... But now we're going. So over the A, we get this phrase, which is very strange. So we're going G string, box 1, minor pentatonic, kind of. Going G string 7, 9, B string 7, back to 7 on the G, and then D string 9, 8, 9. Kind of odd because it's over an A chord when we're hitting A sharp. So there's a natural dissonance that's happening. But then, like I said, this is a motif. He does it again. But instead of A sharp, he hits A natural. So it sounds like same phrase, same motif, does it 2 different ways though. But it's also a call. So let's hear what the response is. All right, this is such a tasty response. And this is as it's going to the E chord, like I said, which we're seeing kind of Dorian. And we're seeing that similar thing where you do a half step bend to hit the chord tone. So the response here, killer lick, by the way. If you're ever in Dorian. So we're grabbing the A natural, whole step in, pinky, 10th fret. So that's on the 10th fret. Pick that note again as it's bent up. Then 7, 10, 8, half step bend. So G to G sharp. So what's happening with the phrasing, right? We're hearing a combination of everything that you should work on. Hitting chord tones, call and response phrasing, and motif phrasing. And this all comes together over this beautiful chord progression to tell a fantastic story, right? It also starts off with an epic lick, gets your attention right off the bat. And then because of that chord, that F sharp 7, and phrasing over it properly, it brings you in this weird territory. But because of the repetitiveness of the motif phrasing, it kind of grounds you, right? It creates this weird kind of dynamic of kind of confusion, and you're kind of lost, but you kind of are familiar at the same time because those motifs are repeating. And then we land with the response, one of the most flavorful response phrases I've ever heard. Right? So he's using a motif as a call. And then responses, but lands on the chord tone in this beautiful way. Oh, I love that. And remember, that's over the E chord, so we're this far in the progression. Now the next phrase is super epic too, and it's more of a call and response, and then ends with a slight motif that we keep hearing from earlier. We'll check it out. All right, so heading into the G chord, we get this phrase. That's kind of a classic rock and roll lick in a way. Now he does like it's supposed to be diatonically speaking a half step bend, but he goes a bit over. I don't know if that was purposeful or an accident that sounds great, but it's a little bit over a perfect whole step in. So box 1, B minor pentatonic, we're barring the B and high E string on the 7th fret. We go high E to B string, and then up the 10th fret of the high E with that whole step in, but a little bit over. It's like a little out of tune. And then we pick that again, but without bending it, and then pre-bend and do that. So we had a pre-bend, pick, release, pick 7. So far. And then we ended off by going, basically what we did in the last phrase, because he's building off that kind of motif repetitiveness a little bit. Whole step bend on the B string, 10th fret, pinky, 10th fret, high E, pick again that bend, release, and then hit the G note. This happens right before the G chord and then ends on the G chord. So that's why we're ending on that note, right? Earlier over the E chord, remember he did the G to G sharp because he's hitting that third of the E major chord. But now because it's a G chord, instead of hitting it G sharp, he moves it to G natural. Beautiful phrasing. That's also a call phrase, right? There's a little bit of motif in there, a little bit of a call. The next phrase. Right, that's going into that D chord right there. right? If we're analyzing what's happening, he's actually bending the second of the D chord up to the major third, grabbing the D note on the high E 10th fret. Now he's picking that as a pre-bend, the major third. Release, pull off to 7, and then gets that little 7, 6, 7 on the G string. So that's the response phrase there. This is what happens from leaving the E chord into the G chord into the D chord. All right, so now there's only 2 chords left in this chord progression, and we've been analyzing chord by chord. There's a very chord by chord balance of phrasing going on, and he's using a lot of chord tones following. He's not thinking scales. He's thinking about what chord is happening and how do I phrase to it. His foundation is obviously pentatonic, but he's obviously also bringing in other phrases to help hit the chord tones. But he's also manipulating this is like pristine call and response phrases plus pristine motif phrases all sandwiched into one. That's why this solo just sings in your head, because it perfectly hits the chord tones but perfectly hits the repetitiveness of motifs and then perfectly tells a story with the call and response phrasing. Everything so far sounds like this. Or the next phrase over the E minor, right? Once we see that it's E minor chord, the notes he's hitting just is like, of course I'm hitting those notes. So the common theme here is bending F sharp to the G natural, which is really targeting the minor third of E. And it's almost giving us a minor 7, minor 9 sound over the E. It's really cool. That's the minor 7, the root of E, the 9, minor third. So the phrase is, and that's just G string 7, 9 to the B string 7 with the half step bend. 2 of them. The second one is a release. Back to the G string, 9, 7, 9. And then we do it a bunch more times. I think that's 3 times. Yeah, so 3 times now. Go there, and then it flows into the next phrase. Killer classic blues rock lick right there in B minor, going G string, whole step bend on the 9th fret. And then just 7, 10 on the B string. And then the same bend again on the G string, but then we're going to bar 7th fret on the B and high E, go back to the bend again. Release, pull off to 7, and then hit it again and hit that bend again. All right, let's take a break. What did we learn so far from this first? This is the first time through the progression. Number 1, follow the ear. It's going to help you land on chord tones. Now, obviously, there's a theoretical element that you should practice as well and start seeing these chord tones. But if you know the chords first, especially if you're sitting right here, me just playing through the chords. Now, I'm doing some cage shapes and stuff like that. But it makes me see, I'm like, yes, that's the note he's going to play right there. It helps me see what he's going to do. Not only hear it, but I can see it. Because in this chord, I see that G sharp. In the E chord, I see that note. I keep seeing all these different notes that he's hitting. Great solos is not just about always hitting chord tones. It's not just about call and response phrasing. It's not just about motif phrasing. It's about connecting it perfectly together and telling a great story with it. This solo so far through just one time through the progression, there's no critiques I don't think anybody could ever have. It's literal perfection. Like honestly, the phrasing, the chord tones, the motif, everything is perfect. The storytelling's perfect. So yes, learn all these licks, practice all these licks, analyze them like crazy. And really, it's one of the biggest takeaways is, and I call it motif phrasing, is that repetitive nature. Like that last lick is a great example too. We hear this 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. A lot of us, when we first start soloing, we're like, I don't want to hit the same note over and over again, right? It sounds bad or something like that. Look at what is happening in this solo. the amount of times that they've hit the same note, the same phrase, right? Even the phrase before, that's the same thing. There's subtle differences, but it's so beautiful and perfect over that E minor. It's adding this kind of aggression to the story. He starts the next round through the progression basically doing the same thing. Right? Don't be afraid to play the same phrase over and over again. It adds to the story. The next phrase here, this one's super cool. This is when it hits the A chord the next time. It's so great. Oh, that's so great. The next few lines also we'll dive into, which is super, super cool. That's just the start right there. It's going to the A chord. Of course, he's in B minor pentatonic, but G string, 11th fret, minor third bend. Oh, that's so great. So after that bend is 9, 11 on the G to 7, 9 on the D string. Dude, that's such a killer lick to just take. That's a great one to have fun with. All right, the kind of response to that is, which is so cool because it's that A going to the E chord there. B string 10th fret, whole step bend to the 7th fret, high E. Back to the B string 10, 7. Then you pick 10 on the B again, sliding to 12. And then high E 10. This is where the cool thing happens. Chromatically walks down to the major third of E. That is so epic. Just perfectly right. Oh, that was just fantastic. Yeah, it's just chromatic on the B string, 12, 11, 10, 9. The next phrase leading into the G chord, box 3, B minor pentatonic, G string 14th fret, whole step bend to the 12 of the B. Then, this is kind of interesting here, 15, slight bend on of the B string, walking to box 4, going 17, 15. Then we get that classic phrase. So that's 17 on the B string, whole step in, pinky 17, high E, back to B string 17, release, pull off to 15, and then 17, 15. Yeah, and then as it flows to the D chord, we get this, I can't help but think of it as a callback motif in a way to this. Because we get another chromatic phrase, right? So that part, that little lick right there. Oh, that's so great. That's just incredible. So that lick so far is... So what we're doing is that B string 17, bend it again, whole step, then high E, 15, 16, 17, whole step bends, and then grab the B string while that's bent up. Release that, and then hit 15. Dude, oh, that's incredible. Holy guacamole. All right, I'm going to stop the licks there. That's enough said. That lick right there is so fantastic. Also a great way to connect box 3 to box 4 with B minor pentatonic. I hope you got a lot out of today's video. Let's quickly go over some incredible takeaways. Firstly, we're not going to get into all this, but as you can see kind of with these phrases that we've looked at so far is he starts off the first time through the progression, very simple, just stays like in this zone of the fretboard, right? Doesn't do much out of that. But that saves him tons of real estate up here to tell more of the story later on, which he began doing, right? So we don't want to do too much too soon, okay? We want to tell what we can right here and only move out when we need to tell more that we can't right here. Keep in mind also, tons of call and response phrasing and very repetitive motif phrasing, right? Don't be afraid to play the same thing over and over again. Like he literally on the F sharp 7 back to B minor on the first time through is and then it hits the B minor. Something like that. He does the same thing like 8 times in a row. You don't have to be afraid to play the same thing. You should play the same thing. If it sounds good, keep playing it. And then, okay, analyze the chords and try to hit chord tones. And the reason you should practice trying to hit chord tones is because you want to eventually be like these guys, and your ear just tells you. Your ear will guide you, right? Now, it does take a lot of practice on our part of learning scales and practicing and hitting chord tones and things like that. So do practice that. But the end goal is not to think very theoretically, it's to use our ear and let that guide us to tell the best story possible. All right, wrap it all up. The chord progression, in my opinion, when it comes to an iconic solo, is the most important part. When the chord progression is incredible, it gives you a beautiful platform right off the bat. You don't have to do that much. You just got to do the right thing and you're good to go. Now, this was not the right thing. This was exceptional perfection, in my opinion. The phrasing was insane here. Not only is there like a million licks we can steal from this song, but the phrasing concepts and ideas is, it's the most incredible that you can really find out there. It's just absolute perfection. And you can tell there's not a rigidity to a scale or to a lick or to anything like that. It's literally what the song wants. It's like, what does the song want? I'm going to give that what it, like this is kind of, you know, hitting chromatic or the, you know, at that perfect time, it just so happens to almost be a callback to the previous chromatic thing. And it's just perfectly adds to the story. It's not trying too much, it's doing what it needs, and it guides the story so perfectly. And the orchestration wise, as it builds up, the solo, the orchestration gets a little bit more aggressive, and therefore the phrasing kind of gets more upbeat and aggressive. We didn't get that far into it because the solo is quite long. But please, if you haven't already, go learn this whole solo, master this whole solo, and analyze every phrase that you learned the way we did today, right? Not only take the licks and ideas that we talked about today with call and response phrasing, hitting chord tones perfectly, the incredible licks, motifs, not only take that, but learn the other things and see how it works and think of it on your own as well. Figure out how it connects and makes sense to you. It might be different than how I think of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. So what makes Hotel California one of the greatest solos of all time? It's not about the flash. It's about the feel, the melody, harmony, and unforgettable phrasing. And now you've got tons of killer licks that you know how they work, how to use them, when to use them, that you can bring into your playing today. Please let me know down below, which solo should I break down next in this series? Drop your pick down in a comment, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want more deep dives into iconic solos. This is the greatest solos of all time series, and we're just getting started. Stay well, and I'll see you next time.